Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /Entitled People, where you know the deal. People believe it's all about them and no one else matters. And in today's episode, it's all about retail workers sharing their psycho Karen experiences, guys. We've got tantrums getting thrown, people getting arrested, Karen spewing the most absurd things at workers. My goodness. I hope you enjoy the lineup today. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened about 6 years ago when I was working for a well-known high street fashion retailer as an assistant department manager. I was working at the till, training a new starter, when this woman strolls up and she slams a shoebox on the counter. She opened the lid, took out a boot, and she said these exact words. She said to me, "Put your hand inside." My response was, "Why would you like me to do that?" She then demanded, "Just do it." I kept refusing politely, all the while asking her why she wanted me to do it. But the woman just got madder and louder, and this attracted the attention of staff and customers, including my manager. She knew that I could handle things, so she stayed out of it, but she waited to see what was going on. After maybe 5 to 7 minutes of this repetitive back and forth, the Karen finally screamed, "Because there's a metal spike in the toe, and I want you to get hurt like I did." I just respond and say, "So you're telling me that because of a manufacturing defect that caused you pain, you thought it's okay to try to bully me into getting hurt too?" She then says, "Why not? It's only right. You're selling product that hurts customers. So I want you to feel what that's like." I just tell this woman, well, a normal person would have come in, told us about the fault, and we would have been deeply apologetic and then tried to make amends in some way. But you chose to try to inflict bodily harm on an innocent person. She then lunges over the counter and then swung at me, trying to claw me with her nails. I dodged it, just as my manager and another colleague grabbed her from behind and restrained her. The police were called and she was carted off, but not before screaming at all the employees in the store and slapping an officer. Sadly, I never learned what became of her. As a side note, on later inspection, the metal spike turned out to be a small plastic shard or spur of some kind, maybe 2 millimeters long at most. It was a bit jagged and slightly sharp. Yeah, I would say at the very least, she faced charges for assaulting an officer, right? But seriously, some people are off their rockers, I tell you. I hurt myself, so now you must get hurt. Like, that is the most outrageous thing a stranger can say to someone. And I'm gonna be honest, I read a ton of entitled Karen stories, and the crap that people say sometimes still has me going, what the F? And this person shares a comment that still to this day makes them uneasy. They say, "Back when I was 20 years old, I cleared tables in a bar/restaurant just after university. Even though it was in the middle of the city center, it had some of the oddest folk frequent it. One night, I stepped out from the bar to clear glasses, and I came to a table that had a man that sat at it. As I was clearing the table, the man whispered something to me that I didn't quite catch. I said, 'Excuse me?' He then leaned in and he said these exact words. He said, 'I said you would look good in my freezer, love.' Freaking out, I just dashed off with my glasses. I told my manager and then found a bouncer to chuck him out. But the guy was gone by the time I found someone. I'm pretty sure he was joking, but I got enough creepy stuff said to me in that bar by male customers that I didn't really need to hear this American Psycho crap. It still gives me shivers years later thinking about it. Yeah, joke or not, that is definitely not something you say to a complete stranger, right? And seriously, with the guy hightailing it out of there, like, who the heck knows, right? Like, there's lots of psycho people out there that just say the quiet parts out loud. With that said though, I'd like to think that people who put other people in freezers tend not to talk about putting people in freezers, so it may have been a very distasteful joke. So I used to work at a movie theater. I only worked there for about a year, but it was a year to remember, to say the least. This theater was located right next to one of the busiest malls in the area, and it had a high volume of people on a regular basis. This particular story takes place in 2008. The Dark Knight had just come out in theaters. Management warned us that the place would be packed, and everyone working there knew we would be slammed. When this theater had large opening days, we would open the side concession stands. Now normally, you get a long line, but then some time in between shows, but not this day. I was having consistently long lines, and I was running solo, which is pretty tough, but I was still happy I wasn't at the main stand like everyone else. By evening, it had died down enough for the manager and supervisor to close me out. They told me to go to the front and help out. Just as I was leaving, a guy comes out of one of the Dark Knight showings. Something told me to hang back to see what happened, and I was so glad I did. So this guy comes up and he asked my manager for some Sour Patch Kids. Now, she was a smaller blonde girl who was in her mid-20s. She was cool too. So she says to him, "Sorry, this stand is closed. If you go up to the front, they'll have some Sour Patch Kids for you." Now, usually when this happens, the customers usually let out an exasperated sigh, and they go up front, but not this guy. The guy gets aggressive, and he says, "You didn't answer my question. Do you have any Sour Patch Kids?" Manager gets taken aback, and she just repeats, "I'm sorry, I can't help you. They will have Sour Patch Kids up front for you." Surprisingly, the guy didn't like that answer. He says, "You didn't answer my damn question, woman. Do you have any Sour Patch Kids?" And seriously, I sincerely think that she had to try and lower her IQ to get this guy to go away, and she flatly said, "No." The guy finally turns to walk away up front. Now, this should have ended the story, but sadly, it doesn't. The floor supervisor who was with the manager was watching the whole thing. The supervisor was a tough girl, but she got along well with management and worked hard. So the supervisor yells at this guy, "Yeah, you'd better walk away." Of course, this guy stops dead in his tracks, and he turns around and walks back to them. The manager shoots the supervisor a look like, "What did you just do?" The guy then bellows out, "What the F did you just say to me?" And he just starts going at it with the supervisor. They were shouting over one another, and when she leaves behind the counter to walk back to the front, he was literally pressing up against her in a very threatening manner. He was definitely telling her that this could get physical. She just plays him off and keeps her mouth shut, but I could tell she was having none of it. In my theater, we also had cops that would hang around to make sure people didn't get too stupid when it got too busy. So she goes and gets the cop after this psychopath lost his mind. They track him down in the theater of hundreds of people, and they bring him down and cuff him. The guy's not being super compliant, but he's keeping himself together just enough not to piss off the cop. As they were walking him out, his family all came down just in time to watch him be escorted away. His wife and 3 kids. I felt so bad for them. At the same time, he totally had that coming. And to think all of this happened over Sour Patch Kids, like some people really need to learn to control their anger, right? And for him to get physical and aggressive with 2 female employees, like okay there, tough guy. But yeah, imagine going "Where's Dad?" and then seeing Dad in handcuffs getting escorted out. I can't imagine his wife was too impressed. Here's some background. I manage a call center of a very large utility company, and we deal with billing inquiries. Of course, being a utility company, we have to take calls from the public, and due to the nature of our work and most calls being about overdue payments and all that fun stuff, sometimes we get callers who are a bit tense and rude. And occasionally, we get callers like the subject of this post. One of my staff, who we'll call Sally, had taken a call. Sally also happens to be our bilingual staff member who speaks enough Spanish to effectively translate for the office. So whenever we get a call in Spanish, Sally's usually the one who gets the call to handle. The day this happened, Sally jumps and hollers into my office with a mix of humor and disgust on her face. She says to me, "Hey boss, so this lady's insane. She's off her rocker and she wouldn't shut up." I ask, "What are you talking about, Sally?" Sally then says she just kept going on and on how we needed to do this for her and do that for her because Jesus told her to. Hearing her say that, I thought, oh no. Sally says, yes. And she told me if we did whatever she's requesting, in this case, waive her late penalties and credit her X amount, we would receive the Lord's blessing. And she just kept going on and on about how Jesus was calling her. She wouldn't leave me alone. I say, wow, that's pretty darn funny, but the next time you get someone like this on the phone, you can always transfer it to me, and I'll take care of them. Sally says, but I couldn't because she was speaking Spanish. I just respond, well, this is how you handle it next time. At this point, Sally, thinking about the call, says, you know what, she must speak English. She was mixing the two pretty frequently, and she was even mixing up words in Spanish. Plus, she had me on the phone for over 15 minutes. I just tell her, well, next time she calls, if she does, just send it to me. I'll deal with her. Cue 15 to 20 minutes of inter-office joking about crazy people calling and things we wish we could say to troll the crazy callers. That's when Sally's phone rings again. Sally picks up and says, thank you for calling utility company, this is Sally. She then recognizes the crazy lady's voice and she says, hey boss, it's for you, it's her again. So I take over and I say, thank you for calling company, this is so-and-so, how may I assist you today? The crazy lady says, do you speak Espanol? I respond, no. She then says, oh, well I need to speak with someone who speaks Spanish. I tell her, ma'am, I do not presently have a staff member who speaks Spanish who can assist you, but I am the supervisor and I'll gladly help you to the best of my ability. She then says, no, there was a lady who was talking in Spanish. I tell her, yes ma'am, but she's busy right now, but I'm her supervisor and I'll help you in any way I can. The crazy lady then says, oh, so you're the boss. I respond, yes ma'am, how can I help you? She then says, well, you need to waive my late payments and fees right away and do XYZ for me. I tell her, no ma'am, that's not how this works. What you're requesting will only happen when ABC occurs or if DEF happens, not before. Blah, blah, blah. She then says, no, you need to understand. I got a call yesterday from God and he tells me that I must call you and tell you that you have to do this for me. At this point, I tell her, ma'am, my staff and I are not here to discuss God with you either. I can tell you the facts. Now, if you want to talk about your billing and your late fees, I can. She then stops me right there and she says, but the Lord, God, called me, and I'm a woman of the Lord, and I'm telling you what I told that girl. If you cut me some slack and waive my late fees and credit blah blah blah, you will receive the Lord's blessings. I just respond, again, ma'am, this has nothing to do with your issues. I will only discuss. She then stops me and says, you must accept his blessings. At this point, I pull out the stern voice and I say, ma'am, this is what the facts are and this is how everything is going to occur. We can't just waive your bill if... She then practically screams at me and says, no, you must do this. You must accept the Lord God's blessings. You must serve the Lord. At this point, I realize it's going nowhere, and I tell her, if you have any actual questions relating to what we can do for you, then... She then says, if you don't accept the blessings, you are cursed. You will be cursed, and you must do what I say because I'm on a mission from God. I just hang up the phone at this point. I then made an office-wide announcement to warn my callers about her, and just told them to send her back to me or another supervisor so they don't have to deal with her special flavor of psycho. Come to find out, she called our director's office 3 times, and the director's secretary hung up on her all 3 times. Well, she seemed to be able to speak English quite well from what OP wrote, but oh boy, that was quite the call. And boy oh boy, was that quite the attempt at getting the utility company to cut her some slack. If you don't waive my late penalties and obey me, you will be cursed. On a serious note, I don't know though, can't help but to feel bad for some people. She was clearly well overdue and behind on payments, and she might have been going through a psychotic break or something due to being at wit's end. Times are tough, right? Either that, or she was really putting on a show to get OP to waive her balance owed. You never know with some people. To start, I was the owner of a computer store at the time, and once a week, there was a meeting of the managers where we discussed changes to the business, things to watch out for in the store, all that fun stuff. We were talking for probably 45 minutes when I heard someone getting upset with one of my computer technicians. I hear this lady getting quite rude and to the point of yelling, so I excuse myself from the meeting and I go out. I don't believe my staff should get yelled at. I get paid for that part of the job, so here I go. I come over to the customer and introduce myself. I shake her hand and ask what I can do to help. The woman calms down, but then she points at my technician and she tells me he broke my laptop. I let her know, okay, well tell me what happened and I'll see what I can do. She then proceeds to tell me that the laptop was brought in just to be cleaned and now there's no information on it. Everything was erased, all her pictures, her work, everything. I agree that this is terribly frustrating and I would have to do a little investigating to see what happened. I turn in front of her and I ask my technician what was up. He explains to me that the lady brought in a laptop with a malfunctioning hard drive. You know the type, bad sector, read arm scratching the surface, yada yada. The drive was unrecoverable, but he went ahead and searched for her receipt. He found that she was still under warranty and then phoned her. He then explained what happened, but since she was under warranty, he could replace the drive with one we had from a previous job and it would be fixed the next day. I then turned back to the customer and I explained that we definitely didn't break the drive. Unfortunately, the drive was dead on arrival and there was no way for us to have ever saved her data. The only option she would have for that would be to send it to a data recovery lab and pay around $1,000 and they might be able to retrieve it. I was also able to explain that we did do some things outside of normal policy to speed up the repair, which meant that we straight up lost money to help her out, but we thought we would get her up and running faster than normal. Well, the lady proceeds to lose her lid and she accuses us of stealing her hard drive and data. I spent another 5 minutes or so trying to reason with her, showing her that her laptop worked now and even giving her the old hard drive back, so she felt more comfortable that we didn't steal her data. She said she got it, she understood the situation, and she left. A couple of days later, she called in when I wasn't there, and she left a long, rambling complaint against me. Basically, that I didn't try to help her, I showed her no respect, and we were the worst store in the city. I record the solution for all of these things, and basically, I just left this one at customer will never be satisfied and we did a good job. I also made sure to tell the tech that he did an awesome job helping the lady, and continue to be creative in how he solved issues, customer first. That said, fast forward 2 years. The same lady comes back to the store and she asks for the store manager. The manager wasn't available, so I come to the front of the store and I say hello. I recognize her, but she doesn't recognize me. She then proceeds to complain about a monitor that stopped working last night. So I take it over and I hook it up to a test computer and it works fine. I let her know and let her see it. I then explain that her video card might be having an issue or something else. This was her home desktop, so I ask her to bring it in, which of course she refuses. I do have people certified to go to customers' homes and do work, so I send someone over to check it out and the video card's dead. She comes in, buys another, and we go and install it. The next day, she comes back to the store and she asks for me again. I walk up, shake her hand once again, and I ask what I can do to help her out. She wanted to say thank you, that she appreciated that I found a way to help her, and she was very happy for that. At the end, she let me know this. She said to me, "You are very lucky that you did what you did. The last manager here lost his job because of me. He stole my hard drive and I phoned the owner and he got fired. The guy was such a terrible worker, and when I was having problems, he sat in the room over there staring at me and laughing. He was such an idiot. I'll have you know, and I don't like to brag, but I've gotten well over 40 useless employees fired in the last decade." At that, I just laugh a little and I said, "Well, I guess today is my lucky day." And she responds, "You don't even know." I then thanked her and walked away. She continued to shop in my store for years after that. She always made a point to say hi, and I always had to bite my tongue because I wanted to let her know so bad that she was nuts. Oh boy, OP must have an iron will to be able to resist dropping that bomb on the Karen. Like, it would have been so hard for me to not be like, ma'am, I'll have you know I wasn't fired, thank you very much, because I'm the owner. Like, bragging about having dozens of useless people fired, like, holy Karen, find a new hobby. Like, I just can't imagine how many mechanics, grocery store clerks, hardware store employees, retail employees that she, quote, got fired because they didn't give her the results she wanted. Holy moly. But yeah, guys, how many people do you think she actually got fired by making a call and lying like this? I can't imagine too many people were let go over a psycho Karen's phone call. So this just happened to me today. I work in retail, and with it being November, I'm expecting the store to be extra busy for the holidays. Luckily, today was going fairly well. We weren't understaffed for once, and a bunch of my favorite coworkers were there with me, so I thought the day would go quite nicely, and for the most part, it did. That was until she showed up. I was running one of our cash registers, and I waved this person over. Let's call her Psycho Lady because Karen would be underplaying it. I begin to ring her through as usual, nothing too out of the ordinary, until I get to the alcohol. This is when I ask her if I may please see her ID for the alcohol. She gives me a perplexed look, and I can just feel it. I'm thinking to myself, it's gonna be one of those cranky people, isn't it? She then proceeds to ask me why I need to see it, and I explain that I'm required to card everyone for alcohol purchases, regardless of what age they appear to be. The psycho lady begins to furrow her brow at me, and she asked me once again why I need to do this. Now, I have high anxiety and fear of confrontation, so I'm doing my best to not have a panic attack. I calmly but firmly tell her, because it's the law, ma'am. I legally can't sell it to you without first checking your ID. Hearing me say that, she grins a wicked grin and she stares me down and she says, the law. I respond, yes, I have to do it. The woman then proceeds to spout a series of numbers that I can only assume was her birthday. Now, if I wasn't required to card people, that would have been good enough for me, but this lady was not worth losing my job over. So I wait for her to finish rattling off her birthday for me when I tell her, ma'am, I legally need to see an ID. I'm not allowed to enter your birthday without doing that. She then says, and you've got to follow the law, is that right? I respond, yes, I have to. She then says, well, I don't have it. It's in the car. You really want me to walk all the way to my car and get it just to show you? Now, the entrance to the store is right next to the cash registers, and at most, the parking lot is 10 seconds away. I could see this being an inconvenience to somebody with a physical disability, but this lady was fully capable of making the short trip to her car to get her ID. I don't back down though. I tell her, yes, you will need to go and get your ID if you want to purchase the alcohol, ma'am. The woman begrudgingly turns away and she storms out of the store to get her ID. After the doors close, I turn to my coworker at the register next to me, and we both share a look that screamed, what the heck was that? Not long after, I see Psycho Lady returning through the automatic doors. Now, I braced myself for the return of this entitled woman, but there was nothing in the world that could have properly prepared me for what came next. With her ID in hand, she waves it in front of me, and she says out loud to me, SEX, with animals and children. Now, stunned and confused would be an understatement for how I felt in that moment. Like, where did that come from all of a sudden? She then goes on and says, they're doing that with animals and children in the schools, but I have to show my ID to buy alcohol? Isn't that ridiculous? There should be laws against that. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, how am I supposed to respond to probably the most out-of-pocket thing I've ever heard spoken? I somehow muster the ability to say, I'm pretty sure there's laws against it, ma'am. She then says, no, there's not. They're making children use litter boxes at school to go to the bathroom. At this point, I do my best to steer the conversation back on topic, so I can get this person out of the store as quickly as possible. I try to take a look at her ID, but she has it shoved into the credit card slot of our PIN pad. I then explain that she needs to remove the card as our machine doesn't scan IDs. I just need to make visual contact with the birthday on it. Luckily, the woman complies, and I'm able to finally proceed with the transaction. That is, until she mentions she has coupons to use, and if they came up when she entered her phone number. Now, our store's reward system unfortunately doesn't work that way. The customer has to sign into their account on their phone to access barcodes for us to scan, to redeem coupons. So in the most polite and non-confrontational way I can explain it, I tell Psycho Lady this, and I was able to help access her savings. Not that she deserved it. But the story doesn't end there. Before I can finish the transaction, another customer approaches and she grabs my attention. Let's call this person Sweet Lady. The Sweet Lady asked me if we sell tablecloths and where she might find them. I gladly explain that we do, but we don't stock that many, and I'm unsure if we have any at the moment. But I point to where in the store they're located and she thanks me. Now, for some context, I am immunocompromised due to a medical condition, so I'm always wearing a mask to work just to be safe. Before Psycho Lady leaves, she looks at me and she asked, "Seriously, is that still a thing?" while gesturing to her face. I can only assume she means COVID, to which I respond, apparently. With my heart racing, with extreme anxiety and not wanting to get into a potential debate, let alone have a panic attack, I just hand Psycho Lady her receipts and I wish her a nice day. After she left the store, I retreat to the break room where I see my boss. I tell her that I need to take a short break to calm down and I explain what just happened. We both share a laugh about it, and she told me she appreciates me for my hard work and to take a short rest. I spent the rest of the day ringing people through without any trouble, while also taking every opportunity I got to tell my coworkers the tale of Psycho Lady. And what a tale that was, guys. And seriously, kudos to everybody who works retail around the hectic holiday seasons and have to deal with people like this on a regular basis. You are the MVPs. And again, some people are quite the character, hey, like just the things that come out of people's mouths sometimes. They make children go in litter boxes at school, you know? Like, where in the world did you get that information, Karen? Like, I sure hope she didn't see an AI video and she decided to run with that. Like, wouldn't that be something? And with that brings us to another end of our slash entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode where a psycho Karen boss tows OP's car to teach him a lesson, and it's the worst mistake ever. You won't want to miss that one. So yeah, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.